Okay, good evening. Now we're beginning the Hachana. So what we're going to do today is really discuss the Inyan and the Kudah Nigel Lag, which is really Miyusas Be'ikr, though the Maimon was Fartim in Samachvov. There's a Maimon in Tavshan Dalet from the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is Miyusad on it. And then there's the Maimon from the Rebbe, the famous Maimon, Galeinai Tavshan Lamed Zayin. So let's just begin with some background.
Rabbi Klyne, the sound is doubled.
What's the meaning of Pascha Milamos? Pashtos, maybe it's a sibah to stop the evil, but why is it a sibah for Simcha? The Talmid of Rebbe Akiva passed away, and that's it. They stopped dying. But that's it. Why did they stop dying? Because they all died out. Except Ayem Simcha. There's also a discussion about the Leil Lag Ba'omer, whether it's included or not. But Al Pi Pnimis Inyanim, and this is already brought in the Achreinim, the Rebbe would bring from the Shailis Utshuvas, from Chemim with the Bravne. The Inyan of Lag Ba'omer is Pipnimius Be'etzem Etzilula de Rashbi. And that's really the Muhus of the day. In fact, the Loshen even in Samach Vav is that Lag Ba'omer is the day of Lag Ba'omer, what the Biur is. And because whatever the Teichen of the day Lag Ba'omer is, that's why the Yom Hilula, that's why the Histalkus of Rashbi was on that day. Now, Kumuven, what's the Teichen of this day is the Simcha of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who was Megala then Pnimis HaTorah. And therefore, B'Pashtus, we are the Hechst Mechotanim, with the first ones to celebrate Lag Ba'omer. We are the ones which learn Pnimis HaTorah, Metuin in them. There's a famous Lashon of the Alter Rebbe. There's a letter in Igris Kedesh Admor HaZaken. It's printed, page 117. Over there it says, Sisu v'simchu b'Hashem b'chol leiv ha'nefesh v'lasis yemishte v'simcha. And Lag Ba'omer, which is coming up, Yom Elula de Rashbi. And he says the words, Asher onu sheisin tipo tamtzis de tamtzis. Because we drink a drop, just a tipa mamish, a tamtzis de tamtzis, so therefore, lahalul or laranin, b'shirevs d'shbachs l'Hashem, we should be celebrating the day of Lag Ba'omer. Dach, as we know, by Chassidim, there was a special emphasis on celebrating Lag Ba'omer. There's many stories we know about Rabbi Isaac Homeler. He would even in Hommel make sure that people don't daven barichas in Lag Ba'omer morning, in order that the whole day should be spent farbrenging. The whole kehillah, everyone in Hommel, the Chassidim would get together and would farbreng, and it would actually be a few days of farbrenging. And the Shabbos after Lag Ba'omer was called a Great Shabbos, or Freiliche Shabbos, something like that. And it was the peak of the year. That's what it sounds like. This was all around Lag Ba'omer, because it's a Chassidish Yom Tov. It's all about Pnimis HaTorah. And the Metzias is that we see how Lag Ba'omer is neskabel a kol tfutzas Yisrael, but the more one has a kesher with Pnimis HaTorah, the more there's a geschmack and a chayis and going to Meron and celebrating Elula de Rashbi. It's one of the things which are very bailet. Yeah, you go to Meron, you see over there, so there's Kamuv Chassidei Chabad, the Baos, this is Melabim with Pnimis HaTorah. But there's B'chlal Chassidim, anyone who accepts on himself Menhagim of Pnimis HaTorah and Tut and Arum from them, Sfardim also, and gerade those Chugim which are not yet so non to Pnimis HaTorah. So I once heard from one of the Litvish Gedalim. He said he doesn't understand why people go to Meron. He says it's Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, Halachik Rabbi Yehuda. Says what's Azay Grace with Rabbi Shimon? They found one Tana. So obviously, the more of a kesher you have with Pnimis HaTorah, we see that there's a more begolia simcha, and we see also how in this day, Bechlal, the Rebbe brought out as Pnimis HaTorah shaykh to every Yid mamish. So b'yedin v'shalei b'yedin ba'akifin or mepchinas acherayim, however you'll say it. The fact is that today Lag Ba'omer is celebrated in Deir HaShvi like it never was in the history of Klal Yisrael. There isn't a single kindergarten and girls' school, whether it's Chassidim, Litvische, modern, it doesn't make a difference, which maybe them, their Zaydis or Elter Zaydis didn't even know of the importance of the day. But the Rebbe Pashat, first of all, beginning with the parades and making the emphasis and shturim about Lag Ba'omer, and it penetrated. And the fact is that it's become Pashat, Nachlas Aklal. There's nobody that can't, Akoponim be Misyachas to the day in some shape or form. And Kamuvan again, the more you learn Chassidus and the more you have a kasher with it, there's more of an emphasis. Now, the actual Hilul of the Rashbi, as we know, is we have the Kabbalah from the Arizal that happened on Lag Baimer, on Yud Ches Iyar. So in Zayar, it doesn't say the date, but we have a very detailed description exactly of what happened over there. We know in Zayar, there's in Parshas Noseh, there's what's called the Idra Rabbe, and in Parshas Hazino, there's the Idra Zut. The Idra Rabbe means Pashat, it was a bigger meeting, there was more attendees, and it was for much longer. It was a meeting, like a summit, if we could say such a word, where the Tanoim for some Getanim Pnimis HaTorah gathered, and they made a Seder in Pashat in the Sugyas, and there was Nizgala over there, deep in Yonim in Pnimis HaTorah. And then there was, in the last day of his life, what was called the Idra Zutta, a minor meeting, and over there they gathered, and the Rashbi was Megala deeper in Yonim in Pnimis HaTorah. Now, we know, it's described in Zayar, how much Rashbi was Megala then in Yonim. Everyone was trembling and everyone was excited that there was Nizgala Tifere in Yonim. But the truth is that it's even very poshut, it's apparent, just by looking, if you look at the Zayar. These two, Idra Rabba and Idra Zutta, a lot of Chassidus that we learn, which is Miyusad and Kabbalah Sarizal, really comes from these places. So the Idra Rabbe is really dedicated a lot to Seder Shtalshalus, to Sfiris, to Zoh, a lot of Zoh, Malchus, that whole Sprach. And in the Idra Zutta, which is in Parshas Azinu, this is the day of Lag Baimer when Rashbi was Megala deeper in Yonim, which he never revealed. That's where you have all the Yonim of Keser, Atik, higher than Seder Shtalshalus. It's all in a Zayar Sprach. But the way we understand it now, it's Bepashtos. It was then Nizgal Megala Tifere in Yonim, like it says the Loshen Milen Kadishin Deloy Giloin Ad Hashta. So, as we know, the description, I'm not going to go through the whole Zayar, just to put ourselves in the mode. It's kedai to read it. Nowadays, there's easy to read translations in Lashon Kodesh and in other languages. In the Zayar Azino, he describes how different neshamas came. Rabbi Nun Sabe, and around him there were 7 tzaddikim, and they were all with crowns, and each one of them was shining with a special Zayar, a shine, a glow of Atika Kadisha, Stimin de Kol Stimin. And suddenly Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair appeared, and they made for him a place, and everyone began trembling, all the Chaverim that were there. And Rabbi Shimon began to say, Seides HaTorah, Rozin de Rozin. And the whole day, he was darshaning Sisrei Torah. And it's a very beautiful description over there, how suddenly the day, the sun started going down, and the day was about to conclude, and it was the Shkiyas Achama, and then Reb Shimon began to say, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shmei, Le'elam L'olmei Elamim. Everything that I said is true. Everything is Dibris Kodesh. There's one shouldn't move from any word that I said. And Tzeides Verozin Tmirin Eloin. And he said those famous words by the Shkiyas Achama, that the Eibishter is masking with me and is Sameach b'simchasi. And that's these words about being Sameach in the Simcha of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And then he strengthened himself, and one saw on the lips of the Heilige Reb Shimon, his lips were moving, and no one could look at him, because there was such a great shine, so everybody looked away. And then he said, my whole life, I've been waiting for this day to be Megala, this secret, and I didn't manage. And now I was given permission. So this day should never turn dark. This day is all in my reshus. This belongs to me. And that's when it would start to be Megala even deeper in his stories than what he was saying the whole day. So this is... On this day, just to understand over here, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, on the day, he's explaining how this day belongs to him. This is mein Tag, and therefore, forever, it's going to remain my day. And then, as we know, they were sitting over there, Reb Abba, who was the chief Talmud of Reb Shimon, was sitting and writing everything he was saying, and suddenly, the Reb Shimon stopped talking. And he was saying the words, Shom Tzivas HaBracha Chayim Ad Ha'olam. And Chayim, when he said those words, Chayim, he passed away. And this is when everyone began trembling, and then it describes over there how they prepared for the Levaya, and this Meridikim, Meifsim, there was a Gili, there was a Megilim Alakus Mamish by the Hilula de Rashbi. And it's over there where it says these words, that what is this day? It's a day of Hilula de Rashbi. It's a day of celebration, which Hilula Bepashtus means a Chasana. Now, so Adkan, this was a long Hagdama, but this is the day of Lag Baimer that we're coming to celebrate as Yidden and as Chassidim, and as Rashbi said, this is his day, so it's a day of Simcha. There are those we know from there's a famous Tshuvas Chassam Sefer, where he's mamish troubled by the fact what you're celebrating. L'chur, it's a yahrzeit. A yahrzeit is a day of fasting. It's not a day of celebration. And he says, I'm happy I don't live in Eretz Yisrael, that I have to take part in this minhag, and I don't want to pull away from it. So therefore, it's like he's relieved that he doesn't have to deal with this. Very negative about Lag Baimer. But the Rebbe explains that the answer is Bepashtas al pi nigla, because Rashbi himself said that it's a day of Simcha. And therefore, it's a day to celebrate. Now, Adkan is on Chassidus. This is the Pashata Havana, which anyone familiar with what Lag Baimer is about would know. In Chassidus, there's an interesting new Hagdara for this day. We have in the Maimer Sfartim in Tov Reish Samach Vav, and over there he says, Lag Baimer is Matan Torah of Pnimiyas HaTorah. Now, just to clarify, in the Galenai, in Lamed Zayin, the Rebbe bavorans immediately. Chas v'shalom, this is not to take away from the original Matan Torah. There's only one Matan Torah, like the Lashon HaYedua, there will never be Matan Torah again. So what happened? There's one Matan Torah, the Torah was given. But this is a Gili of Matan Torah. So Moshe, as we know, Rashbi had the same neshama of Moshe. So Moshe in Yoni he was Megala B'Poil, revealed the Nigla the Torah, which was given in Matan Torah. He unpacked and shared what was given by Matan Torah. And Rashbi was Megala Pnimis HaTorah. So if you could say the Shavuos is the day the entire Torah was given. But it's also the Matan Torah, or the Gili of Torah, of Pnimis HaTorah. That's when it was actually, of Nigla the Torah, that's when it was given. Pnimis HaTorah was given on Lag Baimer. During that special Maimed of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, as we described earlier. Now, just to uptight a bissel, what's this emphasis? L'chayre, the Rebbe wants to emphasize that it's not two separate Matan Torahs. It's one Torah. First of all, because if a Yid has accepted on himself Torah, he's Makabel Torah, then you're also Mechoyev to learn Chassidus. It's not like you could say, okay, I've accepted Nigla the Torah, but not Pnimis HaTorah. By Matan Torah, they were given together. And then there's even deeper word, which is the Rebbe Kochzach always in them, how Pnimis HaTorah and Nigla the Torah are interlinked, they're interconnected, it's Torah Achas. So this is the Mahus of Reb Shimon ben Yochai. In Yoni is the Moshe Rabbeinu to be Megala the Torah, to teach Torah, Melamed Das Esam. And it's interesting, it's a interessante word, that we know Bichlal, Pnimis and Yonim, Rashbi, Raya Mehemne, and Moshe Rabbeinu is one and the same. It's the same neshama. That's why there's a part of Zayar, which is called Raya Mehemne, which is all about Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Reb Shimon ben Yochai is Megala. But there is a classic question, which is asked about Lag Baimer. Why do we say Lag Ba'omer and not Lag La'omer? In our Nusach, we say Hayim, Shloishim, Shloishayim, Shehem, to what? La'omer, not Ba'omer. So there were those which wanted to bring a Raya, maybe there is such a Nusach to say Ba'omer. So maybe it's a mistake for Haraya. Klal Yisrael always refers to Lag Ba'omer with a base. So the Rebbe answered that no. First of all, we have the Kabbalah and from the Baal Shem Tov Siddur of HaKolel, we say La'omer. If so, why do we call Lag Ba'omer with a base? He said, Azez Mekubal, from Pelish Sfarim, that Lag Ba'omer with a base is B'gematria Moshe. Because the Mahus of the day is all about Rashbi. So that's why we call it Lag Ba'omer with a base. Now, this word, that Lag BaOmer is the Matan Torah of Pnimis HaTorah. So, what's Pshat? What Pasha Pirush HaMitzvah? What does it mean to say that it's a Matan Torah? What does it mean, K'movin, in the significance of the day, what we expected in the Aveda? What's Bepashtas? It's a day of a Yortzeit of a Grace Tzaddik. It's an Esinis Koyach for learning Pnimis HaTorah. What's the Hagdara that it's Matan Torah? And this is a new lashon of the Rebbe Rashab. So, the truth is, first of all, that in the Zohar itself, he describes Lag BaOmer as Yom HaHilula. What's a Yom HaHilula? A day of a Chasana. Now, a Chasana, as we know, Matan Torah is also called a Chasana. The famous lashon Chazal Tzena Rena B'nei Tzion B'Yom Chasunasei. What's B'Yom Chasunasei? Is a Matan Torah. So, the fact that we call Lag BaOmer Yom HaHilula, which means a Chasana, which is the Teichen of Matan Torah, so it makes sense. But we didn't really answer the question. We just kicked the can down the road. What's the Teichen of Matan Torah and the Teichen of a Chasana, for that matter, which this is supposed to be the Teichen of the day of Lag BaOmer. And this is what hopefully we're going to be able to cover today after this long extended Hakdama. What's the Vart of Lag BaOmer being the Matan Torah of Pnimis HaTorah? What exactly is this Vart? Now, the way we'll do it is there are 3 remozim, drushim, which are found in Torah Shebichsav for Lag BaOmer, which is, again, a fascinating thing. It could be it's connected to what was mentioned before, that you see that we want to show that Lag BaOmer, the union of Pnimis HaTorah, is part of Nigla de Torah. There's a pasuk for it. But we find in Chassidus 3 drushim, remozim, and through closer inspection, one could see that there's really 3, it's not just different remozim, it's different biurim in the depth, in the Havana of what is the Vart of Matan Torah of Pnimis HaTorah. So what we're going to be doing today is, we'll move in 3 stages to understand Eimek Lefnimi Eimek, what's the Vart of Matan Torah of Pnimis HaTorah. Okay. Before we go weiter, does anyone want to clarify anything? Jump in. Meisiv sein. Abfragen. No. Okay. The Weile is good. Okay. So, the first Wort is it says like this. There's a Rabbeinu B'chaya on Parshas Tazria. Over there it says, the pasuk, Shleishis Shleishim Yom Shleishis Yomim Teishav B'mei Tahara. We're talking about the woman, that she has to become a Tahira. How does she become a Tahira? First, she has to have 7 days, when she's B'mei Tuma, and then Yemei Tuma, and then there's another 33 days, which is a Yemei Tahara. And she can't come to Beis HaMikdash ad Melois Yemei Taharasa. So, Rabbeinu B'chaya, as we know, just if we're already talking about the Gila of Pnimis HaTorah, it's arguably one of the important central figures in the Shalshelas of Gila of Pnimis HaTorah to the world. Yeah, we know there's 2, just to clarify, there's 2 Rabbeinu B'chayas. Yeah, there's Rabbeinu B'chaya ben Pekuda, the Balachevas Alavavas. He lived in the 11th century. But we're talking about the Rabbeinu B'chaya ben Osher, who lived later. He was a Talmud of the Rashba, and he wrote what was called the Medrash Rabbeinu B'chaya ala Torah. And this is one of the first works in Kabbalah, where, first of all, many of the musagim over there were clarified, made lefiarach simple, so therefore it was more accessible. And also, Bepashtos, it was written, you could see clearly the influences already of the Zohar, which was in Nizgala in those days. So, and it was in Skabel and Kloli Yisrael, B'chol Tfutzes Yisrael, the Rabbeinu B'chaya. And that's how Pnimis HaTorah became Nachlas HaKlal. And Bepashtos influenced also from the Ramban, who was also then the Rebbe of his Rebbe, but L'cheire also from the Rashba, who's his Rebbe. We know the Rashba Teichet Getan in Pnimis HaTorah. Akoponim, so Rabbeinu B'chaya brings over there. First he says the Pashta Pshat. Why? It's not Mamish Pshat, but he says Al Pi Pshat. What's the word of 33 days dafke for Yemei Tahara? So he says a Pashta word. There's 40 days you may have lad. So therefore, you have to have 40 days. So 7 days of Tumah plus 33 days of Tahara makes 40. So that's the process of making a Isha Tahir. Then he says, Al derech HaKabbalah, like this. We know that Chachma has 32 Nesivos Chachma. There's 32 paths in Chachma. And then there is the Kala, or the Nukva. If we're going to count the Kala, which is the woman over here in this case, which is becoming a Tahira, then it's going to be 33. So you have to have the 32 Nesivos Chachma plus the Kala. Kumuven, he just says the Kabbalah of art without Hasbara. So let's just taicha ois. This is brought in Chassidus b'Hasbara. Bichlal, there are, what's a pshat that there's 32 Nesivos Chachma? Nesivos Chachma means that it's the shleimus of the gilui of Chachma. Chachma is the idea of re'iyah, the experience of the emes of Alakus, seeing hu levadahu ve'en zolasi. That's Chachma. Bittel. Chachma is keachma. That experience, for it to be in its full import, it should be expressed fully. It has to have 32 nesivos. So in Sefer Yetzirah, the 32 nesivos is because 22 Asias, Hatayra, plus the 10 spheres. But in Chassidus, it's usually, or quite often brought the Kabbalah, that it's the shleimus of Meichin. Meaning, what's Meichin? We have Chochma, Bina, and Das. As we know, Das is a Mokar Seifer Chesed Zeig from Fugvura. So there's Dalad Meichin. That's why there's 4 parishes in the Tefillin Shoresh, which is on the Meichin. So Meichin is 4. If we're going to make a Shleimus of 4, so 4 times 4 is 16. And since we want to be Mashpia also on the Midas, in even of Chesed, the Gvura, where Mokar for Sai Chesed and Sai Gvura, so therefore it's going to be double 16 is 32. So the shleimus of Meichin, which is what Chachma is all about, and the expression of it, till it's going to influence also the Midas, or be a mocker for Midas, that's 32. Which is Derech Agav also the reason for the 32 strings in the tzitzis. Now, Lefiza, what's 33? 33 is the Makabel. 33 is that there's a nukva over here. That there's somebody outside of the space of Meichin, or even the Gili of Meichin, the way is pouring into Chesed or Gvur. There's something which is the Nukva, a Makabel. And if we're going to reach that place, then it's going to be 33. Now, let's translate this a little bit more in Hasbara. You have a Rav, which is Megala Seichel. When a Rav is Megala Seichel, by definition, we are limited to the world of Seichel. A person can't ask a question, not a logical question. If a Talmud is Bichlal not a Kli for Seichel, I can't talk to you. If it's a good Rav, and the way we're describing over here, he has 32 Nesivos Chachma, so he could go from stage to stage, to step by step, he could dilute it, he could water it down, the svara could be compromised and condensed. It could become to a point where I could deliver it even to a simple Talmud. But if the Talmud's not interested in Seichel, if the Talmud's not looking to understand, if there's no, what we call B'lashon Achsidis, a communication of Iyar, he's not looking for any idea, so there's no one to talk to. We're stuck. That's the idea that it says we say it in the Tikkun Iyar, we say, Bina, the Kav HaSmoil is Ktsir. Chad Ktsir, Chad Arich, Chad Ktsir. Why is Bina limited? Bepashtos. Because Svara comes to a point where I could reach only, I'm still limited to a place of what we call 5 spheres. It's Chabad, and then, Chesed Gvura Tiferes, and then Netzach and Hoyt. And why? Because Bepashtos, Begilui Benefesh, where do we have Iyar HaNefesh? It finishes by Hoyt. I can't step out of that place. I'm limited to the place of Hoyt. Which in other words means, if you look in the Pasuk, what's Bepashtos in the Pasuk of Vayivarach David? Yeah? Which sphere is over there, Begali? Only till Hoyt. Why do we stop by Hoyt? Because that's where the Meichin is going to be limited. I have to talk to somebody who Reta Sprach von Seichel, which is a kli for it. That's the pashtus. Bina is limited, it will only reach till height. However, Chochmah is a new word. What's the idea of Chochmah? Chochmah is the pashtus, re'iyah. Re'iyah defies limitations. In simple language, what's this Rav supposed to do if he's talking to Talmidim who are not interested? Or better said, he's talking to people which are not Talmidim. As Nishkan Talmud, I can't talk to him. The answer is, the way we demonstrate it with pastors in classrooms today, use visuals. Show him, don't explain. Explanations have limitations. You have to be a Kli. He has to be Eisen Milan Tibochen. He has to be interested in a svara for me he has to be a shemeya for me to be able to give a hasbara. So it's talking the world of shmiya, which is the world of bin. Chochmah is bligvul. The lashon is v'chochmah techaya ba'aleh. Chochmah reaches everywhere. Why? But pastors, if you show it, a child will understand. He doesn't even have to be interested in understanding. He'll just see it. The fact is, you've demonstrated it. So the Eira Chochmah reaches beyond the regular limitations of Seder Ishtalshatus. And that's the Chiddush over here that we say, that there's 32 Nesivas Chochmah. But the Chiddush is that Chochmah reaches the 33rd. He reaches outside the Gedarim. Like it always says in Chassidus, that Yesoid comes Asher Maskil El Dol, that the Maskil, meaning Chochmah, reaches Dol. Dol is the poor person, which is Sfiras HaYesoid. Or even more, Abba Yosad Brate, that Chochmah reaches even Malchus. The father, Abba, reaches the Brate, which is the Nukva. In other words, the Emesa Gili of Eira Chochmah, the bleak vul of Chochmah, doesn't have limitations. So, to summarize, there is the regular Seder Ishtalshalos, where we would be limited to communicating in an eifin of Eir, Mashpia, or Makabel. And then there's when the Mocker is bligvul. Eira Chochmah doesn't have any limitations. V'chochmah techaya ba'aleh, chad arich, that's the lotion that Kava Chochmah is long, it doesn't have any limitations, and it reaches till Malchus. And that's the word of Lamed Beis Nesivas Chochmah reaching the Lamed Gimel. The Makabel, or what the Rabbeinu Bachaya called the Kala, the Nukva. Now, what's interesting over here, as we know, Lag Ba'omer is when we come to the culmination of Hayt. We count the Sfiras, and we're in the middle of counting the week of Hayt now, and in Mitzvah Shem, Monday night, we're going to count Hayt Shebahayt. So, the Reichkeit over here is like this. There is the regular Seder of Sfiras, where we count and reach to a place of Hayt, and then we're finished. The fact that we're going to be able to, even now, progress, that's because it's Lag Ba'omer. Lag Ba'omer says that we're going to go weiter than just these limitations of talking about Gili HaNefesh, Keiches Nafshim, which are expressive. We're going to reach outside of ourselves. I'm going to become a mashpia. What's Yesoid? Yesoid is the power of communication, of connection. Hiskashrus. Pashtus, this is what a chasana is. What's a chasana? A chasana is the power that a human has to marry someone else. Not the hemshach of himself. The whole keyach of hiskashrus, of connection, is I could marry somebody different to me, not me. And when there's a unity between husband and wife, what's happening over here is I'm leaving my own gedarim, which is basically I have to draw out of myself a well of bligvul, that I'm not limited to myself, and I could reach something on someone outside of myself. Nochmer, in Yesod, there's still some kind of communication. There's a connection. Malchus is, totally put myself on the side. The Chochmah says, it's taka all about you. You're the only person. That's a kala. That's the oimek. Rabbeinu Bachai says in 3 lines. This is the way in Chassidus we explain this word of the 33, and this is expressed. Rabbeinu Bachai doesn't say about Lag Ba'omer. He just teaches the ois b'negeya, the counting for the woman. But like them, we understand that the Tzemach Tzedek brings Rabbeinu Bachai and says this should be applied also le'inyan Lag Ba'omer. This is the word. It's brought very bekitzer and cryptically. But this is what's brought in the Maimer Sfartim, Tov Reish Samach Vav, when he says that Lag Baimer is Yem Chasun Nosei, is the word of Matan Torah, is Matan Torah of Pnimis HaTorah, because as we know, what's Matan Torah? The Eibishter is marrying a Yid, or the Yid is marrying the Torah. However we say it, there is a communication over here of Bli Gvul, reaching beyond myself and marrying the Nukva, the Kal. Good. Lefize, that's just, if we'll stop over here, this would be a Reiche word for itself. And in the Maimer Sfartim and Samach Vav, this is taka what we finish with. And this is something just to, if we would walk away with this. What's Lag Baimer? Lag Baimer is the day, if we'll go back to Rashbi sitting with Rabbi Abba writing over there, and you have Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoir, and they're all they're trembling, and they're excited, and they are, like the Rashbi said, this Meridike Gili, what's happening over here is that Rashbi is saying, I'm sharing, what I'm saying is something which will be everlasting. It's never going to be limited to this day. It's never going to be limited to this group of Talmidim. This is true forever and everywhere. That's what Lag Baimer is. Lag Baimer is saying that Chassidus, Pnimis HaTorah, could reach everywhere. There's no space or time. There's no school of thought. There's no era. There's no culture, which we could say, over there Chassidus or Pnimis HaTorah is not applicable. The word of Lag Baimer is saying it's limitless. It's Chochmah, which is Lamed Beis and Sivus Chochmah, reaches the Lamed Gimel. I reach outside of myself, Bli Gvul, and that's Matan Torah. I've reached the Tachten. As we know, what's the word of Matan Torah? The Elyon comes into the Tachten. Nisbat La Hagzeira Elyonim, Yordel Tachteinim, and we've broken all boundaries. This is Lag Baimer. Good. Before we go weiter, anyone wants to? No? Okay. Das ist klar derweil, yeah? All right. Now, till now, we have the word from the Tzemach Tzedek, the way the Rebbe Rashab explains it in Osfartem Samach Vav, and also should mention it's more Bahasbar in Ani Lededi Tavshin Dalet from the Frierdiker Rebbe. But there is a second beer which the Rebbe brings b'shem the Rebbe Maharash, an Ayavart. A different remez which we find in Torah, not the Shleishim v'Sholish from the counting of the Tara of the Isha, but a pasuk in Tilim in Kapitel Kuf Yutes. We say the pasuk Gal Einai v'Abita Niflois Miterasechu, which means the pashtus reveal Gal Miloshin, to reveal my eyes, to allow for I should be able to look Abita Niflois Miterasechu, to look at the Niflois HaTorah. Now, this doesn't need explaining. This is bepashtus. This is a beautiful remez. Sometimes the remez needs a lot of explaining, and the more needs explaining, the shvacher the remez is. This is like it's just read the words. There's no better pasuk which you would pick to describe what's the union of Lag Baimer. That there's a gili of niflois HaTorah, and I'm allowed to be able to see it, especially since we've understood that what's the word of Lag Baimer. That it's taka limitless. It reaches every place and every time. So therefore, we allow everyone's eyes, gal einai, everybody could look and appreciate Torah. However, the Rebbe in this landmark Maimer, Tovshin Lamed Zayin, the Rebbe says no. This drush on gal einai is saying something far deeper. Ubepashtus. Let's ask a klotz kasha. The Loshen is very strange. You mean Gal Einai? There are ideas which are so high, so lofty, that can't be explained. And then there is that the Eibishter is going to create a special Gilui, which happened in Rashbi, and Lag Baimer sitting and being Megala Pnimis HaTorah, that is going to break all the limitations. What's that going to be? A big Gilui of Mo'er. Like in the language we were using before, it's going to be a Gilui of Chachmah. So the reason I didn't understand it till now is not because my eyes were closed or my eyes were limited. There was a problem in the Kli. And the solution will also not be if you're going to make enhance or somehow fix up my Kli to be able to become a broader Kli. Lechatchila, the sugi is, it was sosum. It was sosum be'etzem. It was soid. It was a soid not because I couldn't know it, because it was be'etzem, a chelik of Torah, which is called soid. It's hidden. And the chelik of Torah, which is hidden, is a secret. It doesn't mean that I don't know it. If so, then there's many chalakim of nigla the Torah, and there's mesechtes in Shas, which I would consider nista the Torah because I don't know it. Soid doesn't mean that I don't know it. Soid means that it's be'etzem, a secret. It's hidden. It cannot be revealed. It's rozin. This rozin, it depends whether you want to be megalit. So if you're going to have this gili, what we described before, of chachma, of being able to show this, to come down even to the tachten, that would be the maila of gili pnimis atera. What's gal einai? So here the Rebbe says a meridike word. Sometimes you have that the elyon is nizgala to the tachten. Like in the example of this Rav, if we'll go back into the classroom, which he shows a demonstration. He has a fact, and even the most simple Talmud cannot deny it. He's seen it. But the way the Talmud understood it is because the Rav overwhelmed him. The Rav is so powerful, he manages to bring the most sublime, lofty ideas and share them with everyone. He's forced me to understand it. I don't have a choice. But if you're going to ask me tomorrow, explain to me, put it in your own words. Could you argue that case? I said, no, I don't have a choice. I have to be made it. But it never became mine. It's not mine because I think that way. It's mine because he's so strong. So therefore, I have to give in. As we know, what's Matan Torah? Matan Torah is, there's a two-part process in Matan Torah. El yenim yedol tachtenim, but then comes the ultimate goal. Tachtenim yalu el yenim. What's the difference? El yenim yedol tachtenim means that the elyon is so powerful he could reach everywhere. There's nothing out of his reach. That's not dirib tachtenim. Dirib tachtenim means that the tachtin is a place where it's comfortable, like Bepashtus, that we describe a dira, that this is a home, this is an abode where he could live, that the tachtin is the one who's hosting on his terms. It's a tachtin dikadira. It has to be a tachtenim yalol el yenim, coming from the perspective of tachtin. And that's what we're missing. So you could have, if we go back to Rashbi, pouring Pnimis HaTeira, and Rabbi Abba, and Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer, and everybody being nispal, and that's not the ultimate Lag Baimer. Lag Baimer really is, Gili of Pnimis HaTeira is in a way of Matan Teira. Not only that Matan Teira was given, Pnimis HaTeira was given. The ultimate goal of Matan Teira is that Matan Teira was received, Kabbalah HaTeira. That's true Gili of Teira. And for that to happen, we need to have Gal Einai. That my Kelim, my eyes are changed. Not only the Torah is revealed to me, my eyes have changed. Which is, in simple words, the objective of learning Chassidus. When we learn Chassidus, Chassidus could come in a way that I've become privy to the Rebbe's world. The Rebbe has shared with me his truth. That's a gewaltige Sache. The experience of a Verbringen or of learning a Maimer and going on a trip with the Rebbe. But that's al yenim yerdol tachtenim. That the Rebbe, Shchina Medaberes M'Teich Gereine, managed to take me along. Tachtenim yalul al yenim means that I'm going to think in my own logic. I'm going to think in my own language. I'm going to talk about it in my own words, in my own frame, in my own culture, where I come from. Does this make sense in the Tachtendike world? And that's the taich as Chassidus has become mine. In simple words, let's ask this chassid about something that the Rebbe never discussed. Will you be able to say, what would the Rebbe say about that? If it was all al yenim yerd al tachtainim, so my eyes haven't changed. Chassidus has overflowed, hat verflatzt my head, which is gewaltig. Gal einai means change my eyes. Let me look differently at things. I have new glasses. I have a different cook. That's the bakosh of Gal einai v'abita niflois meteira secho, that I should be able to have different eyesight, a different vision, a different perspective. And that is the ultimate goal of the Gilui of Pnimis HaTorah. Now let's just add a little bit more ba'imik. What's the vart over here? It's not just, there's two halves. There's like whether the Elyon is blikvul and whether the Tachten has also become engaged and it's become his own union. If the Tachten hasn't become changed, it's a limitation on the Gilui of the blikvul. Why? Because what you're saying is that the only way that this is true is by people putting aside their own opinions and having to admit that there's something beyond them. So the truth is limited. The emes is that if it's taka true, then it could be understood in every kind of approach, everyone's mind, everyone who has in the Shabbos, every Yid thinks differently. If Chassidus is true, then I should be able to say it in my own language. And if not, then it's a limitation of the truth. Like the Rebbe said, especially when it comes to what's Chassidus. Chassidus is Achtas Hashem. Achtas Hashem means Ein Movade, that if it's true, everything which exists in the world should be singing its song in its language. So if I'm going to say that and I can't understand them, so that's very good. We've reached the place of emunah, but your mind has not been accessed. Emes ein novadi is that my emunah is made, and my mind understands, and my heart feels, and my feet dance. Every part of me is maskim tein and novadi in its own gedara. And the only way that could happen is if my seichel has its own eyes have changed. That's the bakasha of Gal Einai. So l'sikum, what's true marriage? We have over here Yem Chasunose, which is Matan Torah, what we called before the meeting with the Kala. So one eifin is that we've trained this chassan, we've taken this bacher, which lived a life of a selfish, self-centered, egocentric life, and we've told him, listen here, there's other people besides for you. And he steps out of himself, and he reaches also the tacht. That would be one level of a chasana. So the chassan over here in this case is Pnimis HaTorah, the emes of Elokus, and he's reached also the tacht. But that's not a real meeting, a real marriage. A real marriage is not that I've managed to reach you. A real marriage is that there's a true communication between two. And both of them have met in one place. In other words, that the mashpia hat übergemacht the mekabel. The mekabel now talks the language of the mashpia. If I really want to get married to, I'm the mekabel, we're Yidden, Knesset Yisrael. If we want to get married to the Gilui of Pnimis HaTorah, we want to attend this chasana, this hilula de Rashbi. We want to be present on Lag Ba'omer, celebrating Rashbi. The way we're present is not by coming and just allowing for the Gilui of Rashbi to overtake us. The way we're present is if we bring our minds, our hearts, our personalities to the table and we get married to it. We become transformed and changed and we agree, and more than agree, it becomes our own opinion. Now that we say, Tachteinim yalul al yenim, I say what Chassidus says. I say it in my own words. That's the aimek of Gal Einai v'abita niflois meterasach. This is all the second eifin of understanding the depth of the chasana of the hilula de Rashbi. There is, however, a third eifin, which is the vort, really, of the Maimer Gal Einai Tavshin Lamed Zayin. The third remez is actually really the most classic. It's the Mittler Rebbe in the Siddurim Dach, which is the Mittler Rebbe's Hanochas of the Alter Rebbe's Mamarim. He says over there, where's the remez for Lag Baimer in Pnimius HaTeira, in Nigla the Teira in the Chumash? He says there was the story between Yankiv and Lavan. So Yankiv escaped, Lavan chased him, and then he said, it says in the Torah, they met and they made a peace, a pact, or a treaty. And in order to keep the peace, they made a pile of stones, which is called a gal. A gal is this pile. And they made up that they're going to meet, that this gal is the border. Ad Kan is the Tchum of Lavan Arami, and from here and weiter begins Yankiv Avinu, and Eid Hagal Hazeh. This is the gal, which is the pile of stones, which is going to make the separation. Now, Rashi says immediately, what's this separation? L'ra, they're not going to pass to each other. They will never cross this for battle. Aber l'pragmatia, for business, of course, they're going to be able to pass. That's why the pastors, like it explains in Chassidus, they didn't build a wall. If they would have built a wall, it would have been understood that it's there just to sever the relationship. But the point was to have a pile of stones where it's possible to deconstruct in order to have some traveling that should be Sheyaris Mitzuyas when it's appropriate. Now, this Vort, this is, the Rebbe spoke about it on many occasions in the early years, Tafshin Yud, there was a lot of ACS over here, Naya Verter, but let's focus Le'inyanenu, the pastures of the Vort. What's the Havana? The pastures, it's mamish saying, it goes hand in hand with what we've been saying till now. What's the theme of Lag Baimer? That the Elyon is going to come and penetrate the Tachten. We have the Tchum of Yankiv Avinu, which is the Tchum of Kedusha. You have Lavan, which is Klippah. The question is whether we're going to be able to reach also Klippah, to reach those nitzutzes. So of course, at the beginning, you have to make a separation. If people think that Kedusha is Klippah and Klippah is Kedusha, that's a non-starter. So first of all, you have to have clarity. That's the pile. But the pile is here not to serve as a wall. The pile is here to serve as a stepping stone. Soon we're going to be able to cross and bring the Eir from the Elyon to the Tachten, which is what's the idea of this gal, Gal Hazeh. You pass le pragmatia, like the Rebbe says. In other words, like this is like moving the Rebbe's Sprach, how we found in the Rashi, it says this word of Chassidus. But the way it's in Chassidus is that by Pashtus, it's not a chayma, it's just a pile in order to be able to pass. So it's the same idea. Now, we could understand it the way it was in the first Eifen, that it's just Chochmah, the Elyon, reaching the Tachten because he's so powerful. Or you could understand it even deeper, that we're reaching the Tachten in a way that should be Tachtenim Yalu L'Elyon. But the Rebbe learns in this Maimer in Tov Shel Lamed Zayin that no. The emes is that there's a third and deeper word over here. Until now, we've understood that there's a hester, which is something standing in the way between Kedusha and Klippah. And we want to pass through this limitation. What's the vart over here? We don't really want to pass through the limitation. We're going to take this very pile and we're going to deconstruct it. So the pile itself is going to become a vurr or a pashtus. It's not pshat that we've taken a wall and broken it down. Lechatchila, the way the hester, the helm was made, was in a eifen that the kavana was to be mevared. So in Chassidus language, the tzimtzum itself was b'shvil hagilui. The tzimtzum was part of the gilui process. Let's try and put this in Havana-dika language. If we're going to go back to the classroom. So till now, we've seen two stages. There's the Rav, which has reached the simple Talmud just by showing him the emes. Then there's a deeper Eifen. The Rav is not only showing him, but he's convincing him, and he's helping him speak in his language this truth. But then there's a third stage. How does the Rav look at the fact that this Talmud has a limited or a specific kind of logic. But Pashtus, it's a Hagbola. It's something that we have to overcome. I'm going to manage to show how even in that sprach, he's going to be able to understand the truth. The emes is aber as adarab. If there wouldn't have been this style of thinking, this eifon of understanding things al pi seichel, that wouldn't have brought out the blikvul of the Eibishter. When does the Rav's blikvul come out? Dafka because of these limitations. So it's not a challenge, the fact that there's seichel over here. Adarab, this is the tachlis. So let's talk in Pashat Sprach, coming back to understanding Chassidus. The first eifon of understanding Lag Baimer is, as Chassidus is azay emes, I could understand it. The second eifon is, Chassidus is so true, I could even understand it in my own language. The third eifon is saying, no. Understanding is the tachlis. It's not like Chassidus is better before it's come into my mind, and I've even included my mind. Adarab, the tachlis hakavona is what brings out the etzem. What's the emes ha'er? If the tzimtzum itself, the fact that there is a logic, that's meir. So the reason why the Eibishter made this system of tzimtzum, is in order to bring out the full glory, the gili of the Eibishter. So by pashtus, if we'll translate it in the first two stages, if there's something which is, if we would be able to work without seichel, halavai. If we would lachatchila have been like the Rav, that we could see the truth without having to use limitations of seichel, then it would have been ideal. What can we do? We're working with our seichel, whether it's an eifon of overpowering the seichel or convincing the seichel. Now we're saying no. The objective, the matorah, was all about the gal hazeh. We want to take this and use this, and this is lachatchila why it was set up this way. So, why is the seichel? So Chassidus is also understood. So when we're learning, but pastors, let's bring it down into practical language. When we learn Chassidus and we try to say a moshul or to use our sprach or to our own life to be mesader something or to compare two mamorim, understand and try to be miyashivit. What we're doing, lefi, what we're saying over here is what's the tachlis, what's lag b'hem, what's ilula the Rashbi? We are saying we're looking for a place which is seichel, which is the tachlis, and that was the chatchila created in order to bring out the full reichet of Chassidus. So when Chassidus is lamayla min ha-seichel, it's not ultimate Chassidus. Ultimate Chassidus is dafka understood Chassidus. And that's the ultimate marriage. The ultimate marriage is not only I've managed to reach someone else, it's not only I've managed to include or convince someone else, it's what brings out the best of me when the stach is someone else. And it's in that language which is going to bring out who I am. Dafke in the Zulas Sprach says, what the tzimtzum atzmei is with the greatest gili. If we wouldn't have had this tzimtzum, then we would never be able to have the full gili. Now, just to finish off with a reiche word, the Rebbe says, interestingly, that the Weile, way we've understood is that there's three different mahalchim. Yeah, you have the Vord, the way it's from the Tzemach Tzedek, that's the 33 days, like the woman in who has to Yemei Tahara, yeah, Shleishim Yom Shleishis Yomim. Then there's Galeina Rabit and Floz Meterasecha, which is that the Tachtin should himself become convinced. We want to uncover the vision to empower the person himself to look and understand. And then there's the third eifon is that the tachlis itself was this tzimtzum, which is we learn from Eida Galazeh. Now, the Rebbe points out that in the Maimer of the Rebbe Maharash, before he brings the Remes on Gal Einai, which was the second one that we learned, he brings this Remes of the Siddur where it says Eida Galazeh, which is very interesting. But Pashtus, why is he bringing it? Just say, you want to say a remes, a gal einai. But Pashtus is actually a much more clear and simple remes. Gal einai, it's a beautiful drush for Lag Baimer. Why do you have to say that in the Siddur he says another drush? So L'cheira b'pashtus, the way I would learn the Maimon of the Rebbe Marash is, because he's just proving that there is this concept of looking for a remes for Lag Baimer midday Reise. So he's bringing an example that the Alter Rebbe did it, or the Mittler Rebbe in the Siddur, and therefore I'm doing a different remes. But the Rebbe learns deeper. He's explaining what's the emes of art of Galena. Meaning, don't understand only the way we understood, like in the second Eifen. Really, I mean to say, like in the Eifen of Eida Galazeh, I want to say that the Tzimtzum Atzmei Yoir, that's the word of Galena. That the reason I have eyes, why do I have eyes, is Melachatchila, because this is the greatest kili. This is what it's all about. It's not b'di'evet. In simple words, Chabad, the fact that Chassidus has to come to Bahasbara is not because I'm limited and have a grob nefesh ativis, have a nefesh asichlis, so we have to talk its language. No. This is by design. This is the only way of bringing out the bli gvul is by bringing out the potential which there is dafke in the tzimtzum, in the gvul. So, la maskone, the nakuda of Lag Baimer, like we say, this is our simcha. Lag Baimer is the simcha of those who learn Pnimis HaTorah, those who learn Chassidus. So what would happen in Lag Baimer? What's this great Hilula, the celebration of Rashbi, is number one, is that Chassidus is accessible to everyone. You can't be too nidrik for them. That's the first thing. A diet in itself is an important thing to learn and to think about on Lag Baimer. There's no one which is not shaykh to Chassidus. It's nachlas haklal. The second Eifen is that the way we learn Chassidus, like I didn't mention this word, but the Rebbe always says this, that's why it says over there in the Zayar, in the Idra Zutta, is that the way that Rashbi was Megale Chassidus, it was an Eifen of Parnosa. What does it mean, Parnosa? That becomes my sustenance. It becomes Isparnusun Minei, that in his own sprach. Then, the Tachlis HaKavana is to understand that this is what it's all about. The fact that I have this IQ and this brain, like nobody else has. This is Lachatchila what Chassidus is all about. It's the Tzimtzum Atzmei Yoir. This is the Kavana, and there's nobody who could learn Chassidus like I could learn Chassidus. Because everyone's going to understand it differently. If we learn like Chosset Chabad, like the Alter Rebbe says in the Agdama in Tanya, Kol Chad V'Chad Lefum Shiur Dilei Lefum Adam Mishar B'Libe, because everyone has a different Sheirish in Torah. So when I learn Chassidus, I'm going to learn Chassidus in a way that never happened, and never could happen. And that's the Tachlis. That's going to be the Tachlis of Gilei of Pnimis HaTorah. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Adkan is the sikum of the different stages over here in Gilei of Pnimis HaTorah.
So is this a level we are going to reach in Lasid Lavo?
No, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. Can you?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Is this
Yeah,
a
I'm
level
sorry.
we're going to reach in the Lasid Lavo, or is this something that we should be able to reach right now?
No, this is obviously the ultimate goal. Is in the Asad Love is going to come out in its full expression. But Pashtus, this is the Aveda of today.
Sometimes you hear people, warn against making Chedushim in Tanya, for example, or the only excuse is maybe because it'll lead to Yerushalayim. What you're saying is now our chap of Chassidus is really that we should all be able to be giving Maimorim, if what you're saying is...
No, Chas v'shalom. Then it would be just me expressing myself. The point is, that wouldn't be a marriage. A marriage isn't where you have the Kala taking over the place and just saying what she wants to say. The point is that there's a union. That the Elyon and the Tachten become one. That the Tachten is going to say the Elyon, but in his own language.
So why is that not saying a mimer? I don't understand.
Because a mimer is the Gilei of Pnimis HaTorah. If I take this Gilei of Pnimis HaTorah, I internalize it and it becomes mine, then it becomes one, and then it's a true unity. If I'm not saying the mimer, if I'm saying myself, so I'm just the Tachten itself. The point isn't that the Tachten should express itself. The point is that the Tachten should be a Dira b'Tachten, the Gidrei Tachten.
Yeah, but when you're explaining all the Chassidus and all the Maimorim you've learned, so you're giving over Chassidus. So if we're saying if you really have the true understanding, then what you're saying out of your worth, it's yuchad with the original Zagar of the Maimer, with your one thing with the Eberster, one thing with the Elokus. So your words are there's a level of kedusha in a sense. You're being true to the mimer. Otherwise, you're saying the only thing that's kadosh is when it's an elyon, but the tachlin really, the chassid really doesn't become some rebbe, and it just becomes more just some makabel zayin.
Of course, it's about the makabel. It's about the elyon permeating the tachton. That's called the tachtonim. It's not enhancing the tachton.
I mean, what you said is that the vorter of the tachton, he's if it's just the elyon, it's not a true whatever.
No, okay, so let's just clarify. There's two ways how we host the elyon. We could host the elyon in a way that just the elyon, I've been overwhelmed by the truth, or it could be in a way that I've become convinced and redesigned. And therefore, I myself also speak the same language as truth. But it's all about the truth overtaking me. Never that I've become just an independent thinker.
Okay, so yeah, I'm assuming the truth has overtaken a chassid, and he's now been affected, so that he's now speaking. What's the main lichshayafutza minasecha that the mind itself.
So you are. We just have to be careful not to assume things before they've actually happened.
That's why I
You still have enough Shabbat. So, if there is, let's just to clarify, if there is a word which is taka coming because I learned Chassidus and I daven and I've internalized it, and from there I'm sharing an idea, gewaltig. Problem is that it's always very difficult to discern where's it coming from. Is it only coming because the nafsh al-kis is overtaking nafsh al-bahamis, or there's other things? There's ulterior motives. There's other things, other ingredients which get stirred in the pot. Right? I do have other influences. So we have to be careful to constantly be in a mode of that the elyon is overtaking the tach.
That's what you said at the beginning. You said you had to be first. It had to be separations. You had to know what the elyon is and the tachlin is. But ultimately, you're talking about a complete merger. The elyon coming down to the tachton. As the elyon, I was just reading it in the Sichas Nun Aleph tonight. Chavrei said that the Rebbe talks about, both things together. The mila of, Achad, Maimer Achad Yachol going on the Eibishter's right, and then the actual, 10 Maimaras that the Eibishter actually said the world, created the world with, and the two things, the Achad and the 10 go together. The 10 is all the details in the pratim, and the echad is the fact that the Eibishter, is the bringing something in yesh mi'ayin. Everything is equal, but everything else, the 10 is details, and the 10 from the 10, Aseres Adibra is the same thing. There's the echad, which is the fact that's the anochi, and then there's the all the details, and he brings out the same thing, but he said ultimately it has to be that the elyon doesn't become any less elyon when it comes down below. And the tachton, when it goes up, doesn't become any less tachton when it goes up above. So I said that's like landing a jumbo jet on a helicopter pad. The jumbo jet still remains the jumbo jet, and the helicopter pad remains the helicopter pad. And you're showing the true godless of the pilot. You said, I figured I'd say, because you said, if our mind understands this thing, then you're talking about something that's hella niflois, that should be coming out, But I mean, so really, what we're saying is gvaltig inyanim. I think when we learned Chassidus, like you said, wait, put your seatbelts on. We're not there yet. That's why I preface it saying, is this something in Lasi Lavo, or if we do it now? Because if Taka were doing it now, then a person
we have to do a me'ain of it now. In the minor itself, in Tafshan Amud Zayin, I believe he concludes, let me just open the minor. I think he does conclude that the shleimus of it, the perfection, will only be Lasi Lavo. Yeah, he says, through the limud of Chatzah Pnimis HaTorah now, so then you say, then it will be Shuzayya and Yoni Da'il. But only Lasi Lavo will it be mamish that there's nothing to worry about, that this will taka be. Whatever a person will say then will be Pnimis HaTorah. Today, it's still a struggle. We constantly have to be doing this as an Aved.
Okay.
So it's the Aveda of today to do this in.
With seatbelts on.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, it's good to see you, Rabbi Yossef. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I the conflict of I teach a couple of nights, so I conflict over when the classes are going on. I was in Israel miraculously for Pesach for 3 weeks, and afterwards, but looks like there's just a couple of us on at this late hour. It didn't look like the gallery view showing. Yermi, how you doing, Yermi? I haven't seen him in a while. It's in Pittsburgh for a while. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could talk. We could for bring. I guess we're online.
Does he still
bring it tomorrow? How you doing?
Oh my gosh!
How you doing? Shalom aleichem.
Shalom. Good to see you. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. Should be afraid of Lag Baimer.
Amen. Shukach very much, and shukach for all the hasbar. Even if I'm not at your classes, I always listen to it a couple of times.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. So we're still in communication.
We're still connected. It's not two-way. So okay. I said you made it a convenient time for me tonight. Baruch Hashem. Yes.
Baruch Hashem.
All right.
Okay. Afraid of Lag Baimer.
All the best.